Hi there, you might be enjoying sketching and wondering how you could add some colour to your picture to make it look more interesting. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use watercolour to create a fake pen and ink drawing. We're going to be drawing a picture of a honeybee today. You can click on the link in the description below to download the step-by-step guide that I'll be using in the video. For this tutorial, you're going to need a piece of cardboard, a pencil, a paintbrush and a pen. You're also going to need a jar of yellow food colouring and some kind of a palette. I'm using an ice cube tray for my palette today. You'll also need a scrap piece of paper just for testing your colours and a piece of paper towel to mop up any mistakes. Let's get started. Now for this picture, we've added these 3 bright hexagons in the back, and I've given you 2 options because I couldn't decide which one I preferred. So in this one, I just painted the 3 hexagons and then let them dry, and I splattered my paintbrush on the page to create all these little flecks. And in this one, it's a little bit more subtle. I painted the outline of the hexagons and then took a paintbrush full of water and just rubbed it over it. So you can go with the option that you prefer the look of. To start, we'll need to draw our 3 hexagons. Now, a hexagon can be a tricky shape to draw. So if you would like to, at the bottom of my step-by-step guide, I've attached a picture of a hexagon that you can just cut out and trace. That's what I'm going to be doing. Now, to do our hexagons, we've got 3 hexagons. I'm going to use my other picture because they're clearer in this picture, easier to see. We're going to draw our first one slightly to the right of the page. So I've got my template there and I'm just going around the edge lightly. And then the other 2 will line up with this one. So use the edge of the hexagon to help you get the position of the next 2. Leave about a ½ centimetre gap between them. Now I chose to do 3 hexagons because things that are in sets of 3 are actually more attractive to people's eyes. It's a clever rule to remember. Even in photography you can use that trick. 3, 5 and 7 will all look great. Things that are in groups of 3, 5 and 7. Right, and then we're going to use these 2 hexagons to help us line up the last one. Right. Now that we've drawn our 3 hexagons, we are going to paint them with our yellow food colouring. Now, you only need to use a small amount of the food colouring, 3 or 4 drops of it. Please remember, if you're going to use your food colouring for food later on, you probably shouldn't dip your paintbrush in it like I am. So I'm dipping my paintbrush in 4 times, getting 4 good drops of paint. And then I'm going to add some water to it. Adding water to the food colouring makes it spread easily and it makes it much easier to work with. It also will take a little bit longer to dry, which means you have a bit more time to correct an error or blend in some paint. This is my second drop. 3, 4. But once you've done that, just use your scrap piece of paper to check that your colour looks okay. Food colouring is all a little bit different, so if the colour is not nice and bright and vibrant like that, you probably need to add a little bit more food colouring to it. And if it's not spreading and blending together nicely, like you can see here, I can do 1, 2, 3, 4 lines and they all blend into each other. It doesn't look like 4 lines next to each other. So if you can't do that with your wash, you need to add a little bit more water to it. But once you're happy with your wash, we're just going to paint in the 3 hexagons. Let's paint them in. First go around the outline of your shape so that you get a nice clean edge. If you're finding that the colours are not blending into each other anymore, just dip your paintbrush in the water and go over it again. So you can see here I'm now getting a line where I had my outline. So what I'm going to do is just dip my paintbrush in the water and go over it and help blend it a little bit. Now these hexagons are slightly lighter in the middle. To get that effect, all I use is a dab of paper towel. I just dab it in the middle, and it's going to make the center of the hexagon slightly lighter, just creates different tones and makes your picture look more interesting. Let's do the next two. Right, you can see in this picture I've got a splattering of colour, and it's quite a fun thing to do. You can just load your brush up with the paint, and you put your hand quite stiff and flick your paintbrush onto your hand, and it creates a little bit of a splatter like that. So you could do as much or as little as you wanted to. If you didn't get enough paint to get a good splatter on the first round, you can just mix a little bit more, like I am, and load your brush up and give it another try. Try and center it over the hexagons. What we need to do now is leave this to dry completely before we try and draw over it. Because cardboard is not actually made for watercolors, if you try and press hard with a pencil over this while it's still wet, you're just going to tear a hole through your paintbrush. I would suggest you make 2 or 3 of these and find the one that you're happy with, and then you can draw your bee over the one that you like the most. It usually takes 10 or 15 minutes for this to dry completely. You can use a hairdryer if you'd like, it will speed up the drying. If you would like to get this finish with a blurred background, you would just need to put wet paint over your 3 hexagons. We've left our hexagons to get nice and dry now. I can touch them and no paint comes off. A great test is to just dab it with your paper towel, and if there are any small wet patches, they'll lift off and you can start drawing. So what we're going to do now is work through my step-by-step guide on how to draw the bee. If you're confident in drawing a bee, you can just go ahead and draw your own bee. We're going to start by drawing the head, the abdomen and the thorax. Now the abdomen should be around halfway down this top hexagon, and it's just a circle. So I'm going to start with that because it's a nice easy shape, and it can go across onto our second hexagon. The head's going to be above that, so it's again another circular shape. On the edge of each of these circles, you're going to draw your ovals for your eyes. And then a nice big long oval for his thorax. The thorax should be about twice as long as you've made this abdomen here. So if you look at that, you can double the length of it, and it should end just above this bottom hexagon here. If you want to, you can draw a little marker so that you have something to aim for as you're drawing your oval. Right. If you are not happy with things, you should erase them. They should be quite symmetrical. The bee should look identical on both sides. So my eyes are not looking correct. I'm going to erase them. I really liked how this eye turned out, so I'm just going to take a line across and get markers for myself to draw the other eye. Getting a start and an end point is a good way to make sure that they end up the same size. Okay, it comes to a bit of a point. Right, next we're going to add in our wings, so they're going to come from the abdomen. They should also be twice as wide as this abdomen, so you can measure it out for yourself or just sort of guesstimate looking at the size of that, where your wings should end. If you wanted to use a ruler, you could, but it's good to have a marker to aim for. It will help make your picture look more symmetrical. So from about the middle of the abdomen, slightly in, I'm going to let a line curve up. It shouldn't curve up higher than the eyes, so you kind of know how to put it in. When it gets to that furthest point, you can drop it down. There's 2 wings on each side. The bottom wing will be about 1 centimeter shorter than the top wing. And they all meet at the same point there. Do the one on the other side, starting at a similar space in the abdomen. Taking it out, don't go higher than the eye. Aim at your little marker, down. About 1 centimeter in, you can do the bottom wing. Okay, you need to take a moment now to check that your wings are symmetrical and looking the same size. Things to check are the curve of the wing. Does the curve look the same? If you correct a line, erase it straight away so that it's not going to throw your eye off when you're looking at it. Okay, and then you're going to add some little lines to these wings. Now these wings are almost see-through and you can just see little shadows of all the lines inside there. So these lines that you add are going to be very light and they kind of branch off and split off from each other. It's good to do this in pencil first and have a plan that you're happy with before you go over it in pen. Especially true if you're not feeling confident about drawing it. Next we're going to add the bee's legs in. Now he's got 2 legs that are in the front that come out of the abdomen at the top. These should also be a very similar length. So if you look just above the bee's head, you can just draw an imaginary line. I'm just drawing a really light line. So I know the legs can go up to that point and they'll look symmetrical. And the legs are broken up into 4 little sections and they kind of go out and then curve up. So you could do 4 little lines together that slowly go up and curve out. Again, try and keep them symmetrical. Okay, so start with just a straight line that shows you the shape of it. When you're happy with the shape that you've done, you can add in the details. Now these 4 sections, it's almost like 4 rounded rectangles that overlap each other. And then there's 2 little feelers at the end. 4 rounded rectangular shapes. Don't make them perfect rectangles. At the end. His middle legs are going to come from where the abdomen and the thorax join together. And again, they should be lined up around halfway down the thorax. So you can draw a line if you want to very lightly. Around halfway down, so you have a marker to aim for with these legs. Okay, and these ones we can do in 3 sections. So from where the abdomen and the thorax join, you can draw a line out, draw a diagonal line, and then draw a line going down to the marker that you just made. From the other side too, so if I have a look, I took this one out to where my small wing ended. So on this side I'm going to make sure that I can get to that point where my small wing ended, just to make them look symmetrical again. So there's going to be a horizontal line, a diagonal line, and then down straight. So doing this has made me realize my bottom wing was not correct. Okay, and again this is in little sections. A trapezium is probably a good description of this shape. So it's almost a mixture between a triangle and a rectangle, the shapes that we're making. feelers at the end, and again on the other side. I'm turning the page so that my hand feels comfortable. The feelers, and then the bottom legs should probably be in line with the bottom of the body. They can extend a little further if you like. So just below those, again in 3 sections, 1, 2, 3. Right, what we're going to do next is plan out where the stripes for the bee's thorax will be. So we're going to have one right at the bottom. These lines should have a curve to them, so I'm just drawing it as a single line at first, evenly spaced. Then when I'm happy with them, I'm going to add a second line to make it slightly thicker, so I'm making it a flat line rather than a thin line. Right. Now that we have our pencil plan, we can get our pen out and start adding in those details. I'm going to be using cross-hatching to give the illusion of the bee's little furry body, and cross-hatching on the wings too. To get started with our pen, let's start with the thorax. It's a nice easy spot, so we're just going to do some hatching, some lines over where we've drawn the lines for the bee's body. Remember, it should have a curve to it. Some of the lines can be slightly longer than others. Okay, once we've shaded in our stripes, we can go around the outline of the thorax. And we'll add in some shading, so where the thorax and the abdomen meet, there's going to be a little bit of shadow up there, so we're going to add in that shadow. And then I'm choosing my darker side as the left side, so down the whole body I'll do a bit of shading on that side, and then just a small amount on the right, just to make it look rounded. After you've done that shading, you might find you need to add a little bit more to your stripes so that they stand out. Next we're going to shade in the abdomen. Now it's a circular shape and we're going to use that circle to help us shade. So let's start by outlining it. You can go over where the wings are because the wings will be semi-transparent, but we're not going to do too much shading over that spot. Okay, we've already decided that the right and the left hand side is our darker side, so I'm going to add a little bit more dark shading in that area. And the bottom of the circle, the edges, and going around the rings. Slightly less shading. So I've gone really dark around the edges, and now I'm doing my lines slightly further apart to make it a little bit lighter. And then next we're going to do the head. So take it up to the eyes. The head's going to be quite dark. So we'll start with dark lines up the eyes. And get lighter as you get to the tip of the nose, keeping the left hand side slightly darker. Okay, for his eyes, we're going to do a crisscross pattern. So I'm first going to just do a nice outline around the eye. Crisscross or cross hatching. I'm turning my page so that I get those lines nice and straight. If your hand is more comfortable, then you'll draw better. So again, after you've added your eyes, you might find you want to do more dark shading on the head. Right, so you're just going to do a line that flicks up, and you can do a little circle at the end of that line. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Right, now we're going to do his legs. So I'm outlining each of those rectangles that I drew earlier, and I'm adding a little bit of shading onto the left hand side of each of those rectangles, a little V at the end. Again, outline each of those little rectangular shapes with a little V. I'm shading the right hand side now because it's at a different angle. Right, then the middle legs. Right, and then finally we're going to shade in those wings, probably the trickiest part of the picture. Just don't press too hard when you're shading in these wings. We want them to look light and airy and almost transparent. So if you do thick solid lines on them, you're going to lose that effect. I'm adding in a few light lines to show some shading. When you're drawing these, if you think of a river and how the river branches out from above, that's a good kind of thing to think of while you're drawing. A river with lots of tributaries. And there you have a pen and ink drawing of a bee. If you have any questions about how to draw a colourful bee using food colouring, please leave a question in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and if this is your first time watching, why not subscribe? I upload new videos every week. If you enjoyed using food colouring in your sketches, why not watch our video on how to draw Winnie the Pooh?